ambassadors in their countries to try to get more answers over why more settlements have been authorised in disputed lands near East Jerusalem. The UN and the EU have also said that Israel's construction plans pose a threat to future peace negotiations. More from our Middle East correspondent Paula Sleer now.
It's happening in an area known as E1, and what it effectively means is that the West Bank will be cut off from East Jerusalem. This announcement is widely perceived as punishment against the Palestinians for, number one, going to the UN with this bid, and number two, winning it, essentially winning a bid that sees the Palestinian state being recognized within 1967 borders and given non-member observer status at the United Nations. Now, we're also hearing criticism from European ambassadors, European diplomats, warning that there would and could be further moves against Israel. Now, we're also hearing from the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and to quote him, he says that this has dealt an almost fatal blow to the remaining chances of securing a two-state solution. Amongst the punishment that the Israeli government has taken is that they have frozen some $100 million in tax money that Israel collects on behalf of the Palestinian Authority. Now, this has dealt a painful blow to the PA because essentially it can only cover around 17% of its needs. The rest of the money comes from this tax money, comes from the United States and from the European Union. If you look at the settler population in this country, they too are also unhappy. They do not believe that the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu will go ahead with building these units. They believe that it's almost a cheap move by Netanyahu to try and gain support ahead of January's elections, and that this is an internal matter to try and really build votes. The Netanyahu government essentially sees this bid, and perhaps I should say not just the Netanyahu government, but many Israelis feel that it was a one-sided resolution that was put forward at the United Nations. The point being made by the government is that there cannot be any kind of unilateral moves on the Palestinian side. There needs to first be negotiations, and only then can that lead to talks. There needs to be direct talks between both sides.
Paula Sleer. Well, meantime, Washington's lambasted its main Middle East partner over those settlement plans, saying they're ruining the peace efforts. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu brushed off that criticism today, vowing to press ahead anyway and continue construction. British MP Jeremy Corbyn told me he thinks Tel Aviv's risking losing its allies.
Netanyahu seems simply to have not cottoned on to the fact that the vast majority of the rest of the world support the right of Palestine to exist, support the right of Palestinian recognition, and therefore not of occupation of the West Bank. Two-state solution is something that everyone is at one level signed up to, but the reality on the ground of Gaza still not having complete free movement in and out, and the huge number of settlements across the West Bank and the settler roads, and of course the problems of East Jerusalem, suggests that it's quite difficult to achieve it unless there's a real will to withdraw the settlements and allow Palestine to develop, and I don't see that will at all with Netanyahu. If he can't even rely on governments that are basically quite sympathetic to Israel and Israel's claims, then he's losing out big time all around the world, and he just needs to wake up. I think the Washington support will wane very quickly. Obama has been re-elected, and a re-elected president into a second term is at his most powerful, and I think Netanyahu might do well to remember that. He also very much involved himself in the internal politics of the USA during the election campaign, and that can't have endeared himself very much to the administration. The movement around the world for Palestine, for Palestinian people, is unprecedented. Netanyahu should wake up and recognise that.
Jeremy Corbyn.